Kia ora, good evening. Police are taking a hard line on duck shooters that breach the Firearms Act, drink alcohol while shooting or get behind the wheel under the influence. Southern District Police will be out and about at the opening of the duck shooting season this weekend. Additional police have been rostered on in the Southern District. These additional staff will be targeting unsafe firearm practices and those who drive after consuming alcohol. Invercargill Arms Officer Lindsay Peacock wants shooters to take extra care and think about where their shot will fall.
As long as they abide by the 7 safety rules out of the Arms Code, that's the first step, and be particularly careful with their firing zone, something I want to accentuate this year, to take into account where their shot's going to fall, to have a look around and to take into also account the buildings, their fellow shooters, stock, and nothing else that might be in the road. And then once they define their safe zone, not shoot out of it. Even if a duck's flying on the wing going out of their zone, we just don't fire. That way we won't have any issues and problems at all.
The usual logic about mixing alcohol and shooting as well, and driving, of course.
I have. It's an age-old thing. Basically, firearms and alcohol just do not mix. If you're going to drink alcohol, secure those guns away and make sure they're away for the day and stored properly.
Talks are continuing between the owners of the Tiwai Point aluminium smelter and Meridian Energy, but neither party is prepared to provide an update on progress. The smelter has said that renegotiating its power supply contract, which was agreed to in 2007, is crucial to its future viability. Invercargill City Chief Executive Richard King says council hasn't ruled out resurrecting an awareness campaign around the issue if it would help ensure a negotiated contract that works for Meridian, Tiwai and the people of Southland. The government has used International Workers' Day to introduce a new youth pay rate, 20% lower than the minimum adult hourly rate. Workers aged 16 and 17 can now be paid $11 an hour for the first 6 months of employment, as can 18 and 19-year-olds who have been on a benefit for 6 months. The Council of Trade Unions has condemned the new hourly rate, claiming young workers shouldn't be discriminated against because of age. Business New Zealand Chief Executive Phil O'Reilly believes the new hourly rate will create more job opportunities for young workers. Many employers have opted not to implement the new rate. MP for Te Tai Tonga Rino Terekatene is mourning the loss of his mate, mentor and father figure following the death on Monday of former Māori Affairs Minister Parikura Horomia. Mr Terekatene says it was Mr Horomia who encouraged him to stand for the Te Tai Tonga seat at the last election. Hunter Andrews spoke to Mr Terekatene as he made his way to Mr Horomia's tangi.
I worked very closely with him. I was like, was a very close relationship. When we travelled together, I made sure that, I carried his bags and do what the junior, it was like a father-son relationship. I was there to attend to him, and we just hung out together. And I always just made sure that, he was well looked after wherever we travelled. And we do travel extensively, and especially to Māori hui. So it was great, whether it was driving him around or picking him up, dropping off, travelling. We'd have opportunities to have long chats together. And I knew in a way it was a good opportunity. I was like a big sponge, trying to just take in as much as I can and just learning from doing.
Political science students in 50 or 100 years looking back on his tenure, perhaps studying him as the Minister of Māori Affairs, what do you think they will read, and what were his greatest achievements in that time as Minister of Māori Affairs?
Parikura was a big man in every sense of the word, but he had a connection with all peoples and definitely with all Māori. And during his time with the 5th Labour government, he did have some outstanding achievements, and I think a few of such legacies would be following through and ensuring the creation of Māori TV, that's a great legacy of his as Māori TV, completing the Māori fisheries settlements and putting that into law. Great achievements for Māori in education and language revitalisation, and also the period, I guess, of Māori economic resurgence, which occurred during that time of that 5th Labour government.
Stay with us after the break. The connection between a Kiwi author and a floating brothel. Welcome back. Public feedback is being sought about long drops, septic tanks and chemical toilets as Environment Southland reviews its foul water policies. Around a third of Southland homes use septic tanks to dispose of sewage, and those installed more than a decade ago may no longer meet New Zealand standards. ES says unreliable records make it difficult to calculate the condition of many septic tanks, which can discharge into groundwater or drains if not maintained. ES says it's unlikely many maimais and whitebaiters long drops, usually located near marine areas, comply with regulations and are seeking public opinion before regional policies are updated. 1.8 million New Zealanders made purchases online in 2012, according to Statistics New Zealand. 3/4 of the population are also opting to bank online rather than visit their local branch. We asked lunchtime shoppers about their online trading habits.
Because I'm a student, not as much as I used to, but probably every month or two, Trade Me and cosmetics and stuff like that. So
yeah, I use Trade Me quite a bit.
Yeah, I like seeing the product and like hanging onto it and trying it on if it's clothes and seeing it. I'd rather do it that way than actually buying it over online.
Oh, I use Trade Me, if you call that internet shopping. Yeah, I use Trade Me.
What sort of purchases do you still buy clothes in a shop, or are you buying those online?
Oh no, I most definitely buy clothes in the shop, mate. I prefer to go in the shop and actually try them on.
Occasionally, yes.
And what sort of purchases would you make online?
Probably bike products, few Trade Me purchases, that's about it.
I do a bit of both. I do Trade Me and things like that, and then I also enjoy going and seeing the products as well.
So it's not bringing you into town then, you're actually sitting at home making what sort of purchases?
Got my jeans yesterday off Trade Me and I paid for them using my online account.
So I manage a store, so I'm all against online shopping and support local.
Why are you so against it? Are people not getting better deals perhaps online? Well, this is what they're saying anyway.
It kind of goes against like the online New Zealand distributors and things like that, and it cuts out them, and in the end like it's going to close down stores like us, and if it keeps going, and I want to keep my job, and I think it's cool, and kids have got to have a place to hang out.
What sort of purchases would you make online, and what purchases would you go into a shop for?
Stuff that you can't really grab in town, so a lot of stuff off eBay.
Yeah.
And it's things that
Invercargill
doesn't, more art supplies, stuff like that. Things that Invercargill doesn't specialise in.
How do you utilise your bank? Are you accessing them online or actually going into banks?
I do internet banking because it's easier than actually going in and waiting in a queue and making appointments.
Generally all of it online.
I do online banking, but I go into the bank when I want to do changes.
I still go into banks and everything. I do a bit of online. Like it took me ages. I only got online banking a year ago. Flatmate made me, so I could have an automatic payment. But otherwise, I was sweet to go into a bank.
Online banking, just a lot more convenient, and access-wise, it's open 24 hours.
I use online banking, internet banking. You do it through that.
Price fixing for milk suppliers is hoped to provide more certainty for farmers and help them manage their businesses. Fonterra is piloting a new guaranteed milk price scheme that will allow farmers to lock in a milk price at the start of the season for up to 75% of their milk supply. It's hoped the new guaranteed milk price scheme will help reduce farmers' volatility to fluctuating commodity prices and assist future planning. A break fee would apply to farmers who wanted to revert to the normal milk pricing system. The pilot for the 2013 to 14 season will be limited to 200 participants. New Zealand-born author Deborah Challoner is in the South for the Southland Arts Festival, and she calls herself an accidental writer. She has a PhD in military history, and while researching her heritage, discovered an ancestor was a convict sent from England to Sydney aboard the Lady Juliana, also known as the floating brothel. I spoke to her about how this personal connection prompted her latest series of work.
They're based in Australia and they're all set in Sydney, and they're about 4 convict girls who are transported there from England.
As you're searching for your own ancestry, you've discovered this, which has led to the characters that you've created for your latest works.
Yeah, one of the central characters in my latest series, the Australian series, her name is Friday Wolf, and she's sort of loosely based on Mary Anstey. And in the Australian series, Friday's a prostitute. Now, I don't know if my ancestor was a prostitute, but she was on the floating brothel.
And what was her conviction, can I ask?
She was convicted for pinching a couple of silk handkerchiefs. Even though most of these women weren't prostitutes, when they were sent out to Australia, they were all treated as if they were prostitutes, as if they were stupid, as if they were scum, as if they had no skills. And a lot of them did have skills, a lot of them were, they had working class skills, but they were all sent out on assignment, and most of them ended up being domestics and that sort of thing. If they didn't marry, or for some reason couldn't marry, they were all treated as, by the men in Australia, as, you know, really easy pickings.
How do you go about taking historical facts and creating a work of fiction?
I do loads and loads of research, which is probably the most fun part of the writing for me, being a historian. I've tried to write a contemporary, and I get to maybe chapter 2 and it just goes bleh, because there's nothing to hang the story on. So, you know, I'll use a whole variety of research sources, you know, books obviously, secondary sources, letters, diaries, photographs if it's a reasonably modern time period, all that sort of thing. Pictures, paintings, maps. I do a lot of site visits if I can afford to do that. A lot of these books are set in the rocks, so you know I know the rocks really well now. I've dressed up in costume and stomped all over the rocks and been asked by 1,000 tourists what am I doing and that sort of thing. I've been out on a tall ship and been to cemeteries, and you know it's huge fun really. It really is good fun.
Weather's along next, then coming up on Sport, Sharks basketball action from the weekend from the news team. Good night.